You know, every developer is fighting this silent war against bad data. It just creeps into your system, right? It can corrupt your database, and then it just spawns these bugs when you least expect them. But what if I told you that ASP.NET Core has a built-in bodyguard, a first line of defense to stop that bad data dead in its tracks? Well, today, we're going to meet that bodyguard. It's called ModelState.
I mean, seriously, think about it. Is bad data silently corrupting your app? It's the kind of question that keeps us developers up at night. You can write the most perfect business logic, but what happens if the data coming into your APIs just junk? An invalid email, maybe a missing required field, or, text where a number should be. This isn't just some minor inconvenience. It's a fundamental risk to your app's security and stability.
It's the oldest rule in computing, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So your API's number one job, before any of your cool logic runs, is to validate every single incoming request. This is its first battle, and believe me, it's a battle you simply cannot afford to lose.
So, how do we win this battle? Well, ASP.NET Core gives us this incredibly powerful built-in gatekeeper. I want you to picture a bouncer at the door of your controller actions, checking every single piece of data before it's allowed inside. That gatekeeper, that's ModelState.
So what is it exactly? Well, at its core, ModelState is really just a dictionary. When a request comes in, the framework tries to match that incoming data to your C# model. We call that process model binding. Then it checks that data against any validation rules you've set up. The results of that whole process, both the good and the bad, get stored right here in ModelState.
To really get it, let's just trace a request for a second. First, it hits your API. Then the framework does its thing. It binds the data to your model and runs your validation rules. And only then, once ModelState is fully populated with all the results, does your controller code finally get to execute. Now this is the crucial takeaway. Your business logic is shielded, right, from the very start.
Okay, so how do we actually put this tool to work? Well, there are two main ways to go about it. There's the classic kind of manual way, and then there's the modern auto magic way that will pretty much fundamentally change how you write your APIs.
So over on the left, you see the manual check. For years, every single controller action started with this if not ModelState is valid block of code. It was just boilerplate that you had to write over and over and over again. But now, and this is what's so cool, look over on the right. By simply adding that one little @API controller attribute to your controller, that entire block of code, it just becomes obsolete. The framework handles it all for you.
So what's the magic behind this attribute? It's actually simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It automatically triggers model validation. If the model is invalid for any reason, it just short-circuits the whole request and immediately returns a 400 bad request. All of this happens without you writing a single extra line of code. It cleans up your controllers and just kills that boilerplate.
And this is what it generates for you, automatically. A nice, clean, structured JSON object that tells the person calling your API exactly what went wrong. In this case, you can see the email field is not valid. This is fantastic because it gives them immediate, actionable feedback, which makes your API so much easier to use correctly.
Okay, so we've seen how @API controller automates the check, but what is it actually checking? To really master this, we need to look a little deeper into what ModelState is capable of capturing, because it's actually more than just simple validation.
See, ModelState doesn't just store your validation errors, like a missing required field. It also tracks something called binding failures. And this is a really key distinction, especially for more senior developers. A binding failure happens when the incoming data type doesn't match what your C# model is expecting.
Here's a perfect example. Let's say the client sends some JSON where the age is the string ABC. Your C# model, though, is expecting an integer. The framework simply can't convert ABC into a number. That right there, that's a classic binding failure. So let me ask you, is this a validation error or a binding failure? It's a binding failure. The validation rules for age, like maybe checking if it's over 18, they never even get a chance to run. Why? Because the data couldn't be bound to the model in the first place. The crucial point here is that ModelState catches this fundamental type mismatch before validation even starts.
And hey, here's a quick pro tip for you. The default error response is pretty good. But what if you needed to match your API's own custom error format? Well, you can totally do that. By configuring API behavior options, you can take full control and shape that automatic 400 response into any structure you want. It just gives your API a much more professional and consistent feel.
Okay, we've covered the theory.
Now, let's talk about what this all means in the real world. Because, mastering model state isn't just about what to do, it's also very much about what not to do. Here are the top 3 mistakes I see all the time. First, the most dangerous one, just ignoring model state completely and letting bad data flood your service layer. Second, returning the raw model state object, which can actually leak internal details about your models. And third, trying to stuff complex business logic, like checking if a username already exists, into your validation attributes. That kind of thing is a job for your service layer, not for your gatekeeper.
This table really illustrates that separation of concerns perfectly. See, model state's job is simply to store the result of the input validation. The rules themselves, well, they're defined using tools like data annotations or maybe more advanced libraries like Fluent Validation. But those complex business rules that might need a database call, they belong firmly in your service layer. It's all about using the right tool for the right job.
So, with all this magic from API Controller, is that manual if check totally dead? Well, not quite. You'll still need it in older MVC projects that don't use this attribute, or, anytime you have a very specific custom validation flow where you need to intervene before the framework sends its automatic response. If you remember only one thing from this whole explainer, please make it this. This is your one-line golden rule. Model state is the guardian that holds both validation and binding errors, and it creates an impenetrable wall so that invalid data never, ever touches your business logic.
So we've seen how powerful this gatekeeper concept is for your API's input. The final question I want to leave you with is this. Now that you've secured the front door, what other boundaries in your application, say between your service layer and your database, could also benefit from having their own dedicated gatekeeper? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.